Sorry, I can't search what something's about, but I can search by title.
Siri, go away. Hello folks, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name's Holly. I am an illustrator specializing in book cover design, and in today's video, I'm talking about colour. This is going to be the first in a series of videos about colour. This is sort of an introduction, an overview of how colour is used in book design, and I'll be going through very briefly each of the colours of the rainbow. And in future videos, I'm going to talk a bit more in depth about each colour and perhaps go into sort of combinations of colours and a bit of colour theory as it pertains to book cover design. So as Maria von Trapp would say, the beginning is a very good place to start. So I'm going to start with red, one of my favourite colours and a colour that is used very prominently in book cover design. Now, red usually represents blood and violence, but it can also represent passion and love, and often these two things are brought together. My first example is this one here, The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Now, this covers both the love and the war side of the colour red. This is set during the Trojan War, and it's about the relationship between Achilles and Patroclus. So it's very much about love and how love and war come together and what the consequences of that are, which is generally speaking blood. So the red in this is very appropriate. We've got a lot of red happening right round this cover. Obviously there's a lot of gold as well on this shield on the cover, but the red is what really stands out, and especially used alongside the gold, it makes it very, very bold. Then we have a fantasy example, which is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. Now I've got this special collector's edition here, but the other editions, or the other books in the trilogy, also match this red, black and white theme, and the first book is very similar again. The reason red has been used here is because there's this idea of having multiple Londons, multiple worlds. So one of those Londons is called Red London, which makes sense with the cover. And I've noticed that pretty much all of V.E. Schwab's books go with this color scheme. So she has a brand identity as an author, which is something that you've got to bear in mind when looking at colors and why they've been chosen. There are many, many reasons why they might be. In this case, it really makes sense to have red as the primary color. All right, moving on to orange. And when I think of orange and books, of course, I think of the classic penguin books. There are many books about classic penguins, and pretty much all the books that are about penguin books have this classic orange on them, and that is very much a central part of their branding. You've also got penguins books which have orange spine, the non-fiction ones, and you can still get the classic orange books today. Other examples obviously include A Clockwork Orange, and there seem to be quite a few book titles that have the word orange in them. I'm thinking Bitter Orange by Claire Fuller, which came out last year, and Priory of the Orange Tree, and both of these also have orange in some capacity on the cover. Likewise, we've got The Amber Fury by Natalie Haynes, has a sort of warm yellow-orange on the cover. Then we move on to yellow, and this is another one that we don't see a lot of on its own, but we have seen a few really quite yellow covers in recent years. A few of these come from literary fiction, so we've got Tin Man by Sarah Winman, which has got a very yellow cover, and Conversations with Friends, as well as Pages for You, which I have got an example of here. It's got some yellow happening, and yellow paired with white seems to be a theme on these covers. Another one that comes to mind is the paperback version of Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. When I think of yellow, I think of sickness, but I also think of joy and the sun and hot summer days. So depending on the kind of yellow used, it can be used to evoke different things. Another classic example is The Yellow Wallpaper, which is a classic sort of feminist novel, and usually the cover of this, there are many variations, but usually usually it has yellow on it. That tends to be the way things go if there's a colour actually in the title. But in this case, the yellow is used to evoke madness and mental breakdown. So it just goes to show how one colour can have many different meanings in many different contexts. And then we get to green, the infamous green book cover, and I will cover this more in depth in a different video. But for a long time in publishing, there's been this idea that green books don't sell. I think this has been dispelled, at least much more so than before, since the release of The Essex Serpent, which was a runaway success, in part because of its absolutely stunning cover. I mean, it's a great book as well, but this cover is beyond beautiful. It's hard to have a conversation about this book without mentioning how gorgeous it is. Even so, there aren't nearly as many green covers as there are blue ones or white ones, but we've got things like The Gilded Wolves. This is an Owl Crate exclusive cover, but I believe the other cover, the standard cover, is very, very similar. It has the green background still. This is a book that I've seen a lot of on BookTube and seems to be doing very well. There's also The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which is very green and very beautiful. And the reason they went with a green on this cover, I'm assuming, is because of a green dress that features in the story. And the result is an absolutely beautiful book cover and a book that seems to have done very well as well. Then we get to blue books, and I can't help but notice that a lot of books are blue, and I think that's because blue is quite a neutral colour. We tend to like blue. It's hard to not like blue in many ways because we are so surrounded by it, the sky being blue, and if you live by the ocean, it's very blue. It's one of these colours that is fairly inoffensive. It doesn't have too much associated with it in terms of gender, even though we gender boys and girls as pink and blue. Blue still tends to be a pretty gender neutral colour, which is a whole other topic. I've got a few examples here. So these are, I would say, targeted towards women, generally speaking young women, and we've got a lot of blue happening on this one. Same with the Turnaway Girls. And this one here, which might not be marketed towards women as much as the other two, but yeah, all of three of these use very similar color choices. So you've got a blue background and then with highlights in sort of whites and golds. Gold is often used with blue and with other colors because it contrasts really well, especially if you've got a really deep blue. They're not quite complementary colors, but they're close to being complementary. They're far enough away on the color wheel, which is something I could go into in more detail in a different video. But they work well together and it makes the gold really stand out. I think it's probably safe to say that I have more blue books on my shelves than other colours, and I think other people find this as well. I haven't done a sort of comprehensive survey of this, but across all genres, blue is a colour that gets used and it goes well with lots of other colours, and it just seems to be used an awful lot. We also see this in business and in branding, where blue is used as a colour that sort of appeals to everyone. It's a common denominator colour, I suppose. Brands like Facebook and Twitter use blue, and you'll find that with a lot of big companies as well. That brings us to purple, and purple is an interesting one because I could not find very many examples of purple books. Generally speaking, purple stands for royalty, and historically that has been the case, and excess in some ways as well. It also has a sense of mystery to it, depending on what colours it's paired with, and it's another colour that's often paired with gold, because yellow or gold is the complementary colour to purple. It's often paired with blues and pinks as well, which sit on either side of it in the colour wheel. Now, like I said, I couldn't find a great deal of examples of purple books. I don't have many on my shelves, but you do find it a fair bit in YA fantasy. Books like The Fever King that came out recently has a lot of purple on it. Likewise, Girls of Paper and Fire uses purples and pinks. Wicked Like a Wildfire, which has these beautiful illustrations, has a purple background, as does The Bone Witch and this edition of The Muse of Nightmares. Oh, Oh, and the other example I found was The Slow Regard of Silent Things, which is a novella. It's part of the Kingkiller Chronicle, so part of the Name of the Wind series. And this is another quite strange book. It's not your sort of typical novella in the fantasy genre. It's not really typical of anything. And it uses purple, again, to evoke a sense of mystery. Auri, who is the main character of this, is a very mysterious person. And so this really seems to suit her character. Aside from that, I have some pink books on my shelf, but not really any other purple ones. So if you have any other good examples of purple books, especially purple books that have done well, I'd be really interested to know. Maybe I have just got a blind spot when it comes to purple books. It seems that even though supposedly green books don't sell, there are actually fewer purple books than green ones. My question for you is, which coloured book do you have the most of on your shelf? Is it blue, like I think it might be, or is it something like white or black, which I haven't covered in this video, but I will cover in the future? Let me know down in the comments and let me know which colour you'd like me to cover next. If you're interested in my book cover designs, you can have a look at my website. It is hollydundesign.com, and there you'll be able to find out which colours I use the most of. If you enjoyed this video, please do subscribe and hit that notification bell, which will let you know when new videos come up. I have a heap of videos that I've done in the past about book cover design, and I will be doing more as well. So if you want more of that juicy book cover goodness, then subscribe. And you can like this video as well. That helps the video to show up in the algorithm to other people who are interested in this kind of thing. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.